Arrival at Eldridge Manor. The air was cool and damp as Clara walked along the narrow path leading to Eldridge Manor. The sky was overcast with gray clouds, which seemed to herald a looming misfortune. Clara had only seen the house in old photographs that spoke of its former grandeur. Now, standing before the weathered facade, she felt small and lost. The key creaked in the heavy door as she unlocked it. A musty odor hit her, and the shadow of the manor seemed to envelop her. The rooms were covered in dust, as if the ghosts of the past were trapped in every corner. She sensed that something sinister lurked within, but her curiosity drove her forward. With each step Clara took within the manor, she felt as though the walls themselves were breathing, eager to share their secrets. She had prepared to explore the history of the Eldridge family, yet what she truly sought was an escape from her own past. The first night in the manor was marked by restless sleep and a feeling of being watched. Clara woke up several times, driven by an indescribable discomfort. When she finally opened her eyes in the morning, the room was bathed in a ghostly light streaming through the old windows. Determined, Clara made her way to the manor's library. Old bookshelves stood in half-darkness, covered in a layer of dust that obscured the titles of stories from another time. She found diaries and letters from the Eldridge family that spoke of a dark secret, loss, madness, and a curse that surrounded the house. As she read, she felt as though someone was behind her. A fleeting shadow passed over the wall, and when she turned around, no one was there. A shiver ran down her spine. Clara shook off the thought, but doubts began to gnaw at her. On the second night, Clara heard a sound for the first time, a faint whisper that drifted through the darkness. It sounded like the breath of a lost soul seeking help. Hesitantly, she got up and followed the sound through the long corridors of the manor. When she entered the old salon, the air was cold and the shadows seemed to dance. Suddenly, she spotted a figure in the corner of the room, shrouded in darkness. Clara wanted to scream, but a voice in her head advised her to remain still. The apparition was female, with long, tangled hair and a gaze that fluctuated between sadness and anger. "Help!" the apparition whispered, pointing to an old portrait on the wall. Clara stepped closer and discovered that the image depicted a young woman from the 19th century who looked remarkably like the apparition. A feeling of connection washed over her, and she realized she was entangled in a story from which she could not escape. Clara couldn't tear her gaze away from the apparition. The woman was so pale that she seemed almost transparent, and her eyes shimmered with a deep blue that reminded Clara of the clearest sky. Yet what emanated from those eyes was the pain of a lost soul. "Who are you?" Clara asked, her voice trembling slightly. The apparition tilted her head as if trying to remember something. "Help!" she whispered again, pointing once more at the portrait on the wall. Clara stepped even closer and saw the name beneath the image, Evelyn Eldridge. "Evelyn," Clara murmured, and suddenly she was overwhelmed by a wave of emotions. She could almost physically feel the deep sorrow and despair of the woman. "What happened to you?" The apparition tilted her head as if trying to recall. "Help!" she whispered again, and Clara felt that the shadow enveloping her was more than just a ghost. It was a story that wanted to be told. Clara knew she had to learn more about Evelyn and the Eldridge family. In the library, she quickly found the young woman's diary. With trembling hands, she opened the yellowed and fragile pages. "For a long time, I have been trapped in this house," Clara read aloud. "The shadows pursue me, and I fear that I will soon become one of them. A curse lies upon our family, and I do not know how to break it." The words from the past seemed to come directly from Evelyn's heart. Clara understood that the story was not yet over. She resolved to dig deeper and uncover the secrets that the Eldridge family had kept hidden in darkness for so long. Days passed, and Clara found herself wandering the manor repeatedly. After the first visit to the salon, the apparition had not reappeared, but the feeling that something was amiss lingered. She had a strong urge to explore every hidden corner of the manor, so she decided to search the cellar. With a flashlight in hand, Clara descended the creaky stairs. The cellar was dim and damp, the walls covered in mold. The smell of decay was overwhelming. Under the staircase, she discovered an old wooden door, partially obscured by rubble. Her heart raced as she opened the door. The room behind it was small and bore the same oppressive atmosphere as the rest of the house. But in the corner, Clara saw an old trunk with rusty locks. With great effort, she managed to unlock the trunk and lifted the lid. Inside lay a pile of yellowed letters and some personal items belonging to the Eldridge family, including a broken locket. As Clara held the locket in her hand, she felt time stand still. She sensed a strong connection to Evelyn, as if she had sent her a message. In one of the letters, she found a description of a secret ritual that needed to be performed to break the curse that weighed on the family. "I must perform the ritual," Clara murmured to herself. "I must help Evelyn." With the knowledge of the ritual described in the letters, Clara began to prepare. It was a complex process that had to be conducted in the darkness of the manor, under the light of the full moon. She needed to gather old objects associated with the Eldridge family, candles, an old mirror, and the keepsakes she had found in the cellar. On the night of the full moon, Clara prepared the room in the salon. She arranged the candles and placed the keepsakes in the center of the room. With trembling hands, she lit the candles and began to recite the words of the ritual aloud. Her voice echoed in the stillness of the house. Suddenly, the air began to shimmer, and the shadows around her seemed to come alive. Clara felt a presence pushing into the room, as if the ghosts of the past were returning. She closed her eyes and concentrated on Evelyn, who was waiting for her in the darkness. "Evelyn, I'm here to help you," Clara shouted, her voice firm and resolute. A cold wind swept through the room, and the candles flickered violently. Clara felt the pressure in her chest and the despair in the voices of the shadows. "Stay strong, Clara," Evelyn called out. "We are one." With a final flash of light, Clara felt the locket grow hot in her grasp, and she pressed it against her chest. "I break the curse of the Eldridge family," she shouted with all her might. An ear-piercing scream filled the room, and the shadows seemed to compress. Clara felt the space around her shifting, as if the very walls of the manor were starting to react. The darkness shattered, and the shadows appeared to fade as the bluish aura filled the room. "It's over, Evelyn," Clara said as the apparition began to glow more brightly. "You are free." The darkness around Clara began to lift, and the ghosts that had haunted the manor slowly turned invisible. Evelyn's face transformed into an expression of peace, as the sadness and pain fell away from her. "Thank you," Evelyn whispered before she vanished in one final ray of light. With a last jolt, the locket fell from Clara's hands and landed on the floor. The candles extinguished, and the room was suddenly silent. Clara knelt to pick up the locket and, at that moment, was overcome by a profound sense of calm. Days passed, and Clara felt lighter. The presence of the Eldridge family had disappeared, and the manor radiated a new energy. She had not only researched the history of the house, but had also changed its fate. Clara decided to turn Eldridge Manor into a historical center. She wanted to keep Evelyn's story and that of her family alive for future generations. When she welcomed the first visitors to the manor, Clara felt a connection to the past. The house had entrusted her with its secrets, and she had vanquished the shadows. It was a new beginning, both for the manor and for herself. And on quiet nights, when the wind whispered through the old trees, Clara sometimes heard the soft whisper of Evelyn, reminding her that while the past can be heavy, there is always a way to be free. A fleeting shadow. Months later, while Clara sat by one of the windows in the manor reviewing her notes, she suddenly felt a familiar presence. She turned around, but the room was empty. A gentle smile spread across her face. Thank you, Evelyn, she whispered into the silence. The past was now part of her story, and the manor would always be a place of change and new beginnings.